imagine how beautiful that would look, because this is like, wow, that's amazing, you know? You get that kind of an effect. Okay, so we have the Buddha, like you said, and he's raised on a surface. This is to give him some status. And we have a Japanese lantern back there. We have other Japanese lanterns also in the back, which you can't really see, but for just some lighting and illumination. So it makes it a little pleasant. So you see this lantern on the side, and you see this other one here. So you can get these, you know, like you can any war garden place, like you can find them here, or if you go to a statuary place, you can find them online as well. Yeah, and then we just said, okay, well, we want to make we want to put plants in here. Again, you're going towards asymmetry. So there's a pattern, okay? So Japanese always, you know, say 7, 5, or 3. You never want to do things in even numbers. You always want to have odd numbers. The reason is that if you want to do things in even numbers, you're always looking, your mind, psychologically, is always looking for symmetry. So if you have two things and they don't look the same, it will look very awkward. And you'll be like, this is not balanced. Like your brain just goes to, it's not balanced. So you create the natural imbalance by giving it an uneven number. And so you've always seen these bushes in Japanese gardens. So you'll always see like a pattern of 3 or 5 or 7. Some are big, some are small, some are, you know, medium sized, but it's always a kind of a pattern. So that's what we were trying to do. Like we have here 5 dahlias in the front, and then we have these toxins over here in the back, and then we have the giant cannon right there. Yeah, and then we put a pepper plant in there 2 years last year, so it did really well. It's kind of an interesting add-on.
I got a question. How deep is the riverbed, and did you use that rubber lining on?
We used a wheat cloth under this, and it's not deep. It's an inch. It's like a single layer of the gravel. It's not too deep, like probably an inch and a half. Yeah, and you could make it deeper, which is fine. But then keeping it clean is also reasonably hard. You have to kind of make sure if the pollen drops on it, the rock will get discolored. So you have to, you know, usually clean and replace the rock, which is, you know, maintenance is important. I mean, that's one of the things in Japanese gardens, that if you don't maintain it, it's not going to look good. So there is a lot of maintenance. You have to go back there. You have to make sure that, you know, you still have the breathing shapes and everything, and it continues to be pleasing. So it's quite delicate. Okay, so then let's move on. And then we kind of go towards the path. So you're seeing this curving around our patio that we just came from, right? So now we're going to this open area here where there's a sitting area. Again, over here we have, you know, some Japanese accents. We kind of put some neutral colors, right? So we're always going for the gray. So I'm trying to create a balance in the colors. You won't see too many conflicting colors in the same space. So how do you define a space? So if you have a natural boundary, then you can say, okay, I'm going to change my pattern past that boundary to something else. So as an example, I could have made like a break here, you know, with something else, and then I could have changed the pattern. But I didn't. So I need to continue the pattern because then it's pleasing. It's not disturbing my point of view and my sight, right? So I'm kind of flowing with the path that I created. So that was the whole idea. It's like we were already using this stone, these pavers here. So we said, okay, well, we need to be more consistent. So we use gravel all the way through around in both these things so that it looks completely consistent. Okay, so let's follow through this. Then, you know, so this is our little seating area. There's our Japanese doggy. And that's the kitchen where we came out of initially. So we're just wrapping it around here. So this is our little caladium garden again, Lisa's design. She's actually pretty good for design. Don't tell her. But yeah. So back here also, like, we added a little bit of a Japanese accent, so it doesn't look totally out of place, right? And there's a little stone here, there's a little owl here, you can see that over there. But yeah, it's just like a nice little color spot that we created at the back. And then let's move around here a little bit more. Okay, so here you're seeing us come more close to the water garden. And so there is sound on this video at this point, so I'm going to turn on the sound and you'll hear me talking. The other me talking. So this lantern,
design as a lantern.
can you guys hear that? Okay, so that's called Naka lantern. It's actually a Yukimi style. So Yukimi lantern, I'll get into lanterns a little bit later, but that style has feet. So that's typically called a Yukimi lantern. So you see it's very contemporary.
As you walk towards the in-ground pond, you see the Van Curve Bridge, which is also called the Yuzei. The lettering on there means Taiwan Shima, as this is the path to our island. Taiwan Shima stands for Peaceful Island. If you walk to the left, you would go to.
So this is the bridge that I was talking about earlier. And then you can see that we created these accents here with the solar lanterns. So I have solar lanterns in the Zen garden as well, but they're exactly the same.
Above ground koi pool, in Japanese that's called koi puro. And if you walk,
So we have two ponds. So one is in-ground pond, and then there's one above ground pond. The above ground is behind back there, that's what I was just talking about. And so we named it Koi Pool or Koi Puro. And again, sorry for the accent. But yeah, so we're just gonna walk through the garden and we'll go through step by step.
towards the right, you would go past our bench and to our Yukimi lantern.
So the bench again, just to feature that a little bit, natural colors, made out of slate. It's contemporary style. It's not a traditional bench, but I added more modernistic elements to it. We liked it, so we added it. You know, but it looks good. It needs to fit in. That's the idea. It's like doesn't look. If it was a different color than gray, it would conflict with the other half color, right? So that's the reason why we chose the gray bench, is because it doesn't conflict. And the stone that you saw on the side of the bench, which is the feet of the bench, are also natural colors. They don't look out of place, at least not to us. So that's the idea.
Panels and a Shinto lantern.
Okay, so this Shinto lantern, this one here, is made to scale. So Shinto is a shrine, is a place in Japan, and it is from the pictures that I've seen. Again, not been there, but the pictures that I've seen is that the whole area as you enter the shrine is surrounded by these lanterns. They're meant to illuminate your path, and this is path lighting. So in the olden ways, like you see these, My Fair Lady as an example, you see these lanterns that are really tall, and you have these gas lights and stuff. So that in Japan they didn't have all the technology, right? So you're talking early, 800 AD, in that era. So they built these wooden lanterns. Again, the paper, the white there is shoji paper. So you can see the light, but it's very dim and it flickers. So this lantern was actually built to scale to the Shinto lanterns that are in Japan. built by a friend of ours. He's great. He also helped build the pool, the above ground pool. But it's done by hand, so everything is handmade, everything is natural. Again, there's consistency in colors, right? So if I use the red, use the same red, don't change your color pattern, color palette. And by the way, red in Japanese is a sacred color. You see this all the way back, like you say, you have the geisha culture. They put a lot of red in their face. They had a lot of makeup and everything. It used to be made out of mercury and cinnamon, both of which are poisonous, which is not a good idea. So so they changed obviously the color. It has the same hue and saturation as the vermilion color, which is what they then started using. But that's how it all started, and the red is really meant to be very sacred, and that's what you use in temples, and you'll see a lot of this bright red color. The color that I'm using here is a paint that from Home Depot. It's called Red Baron. I like this one better because it's slightly muted, more than the vermilion color. So I picked that one because I didn't want to make it
Is
too
it a
good.
flat base paint or does it have a little gloss?
No, this is not gloss. Yeah, it's flat. Yeah.
What are the orange and yellow flowers?
These are roses.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I thought they were part of the lilies for a second.
Yeah, I have, so around the pond, you will see this a little bit. I made like a little flower bed, and some of them are in pots.
Okay.
So the roses are in pots. But this guy is supposed to be a lotus, that's supposed to flower, which it never does. But
It did once.
it did once, yes.
Have you tried dividing it?
Dividing it? Yeah, several times. I just had the worst luck with lotus.
Fertilizing.
Yeah,
You have to fertilize as soon as the leaves start coming up.
Yeah.
yeah, please come and help me. I'm doing that. It just doesn't work. I don't know, some combination of sunlight or I don't know what I'm doing wrong. It's like I have now, this year, I have 4 lotus plants in different tubs. And I actually made a wading pool for just plants.
Yeah.
So I put the lotus tubs in there, so I'm growing them there. We'll see if they do something.
They also like really hot water.
Really
Hot
hot.
water.
Yeah,
Has
so-
to be real sunny.
Yeah.
All day.
Or if they're like in a pot, you can do it in the pond, but like just barely above the pond surface, so like you get a heated
For
small
a rose
volume of
bush?
water.
No, for the lotus.
No, the lotus.
Oh,
So
okay.
this only has like 2 inches of water above it,
Yeah.
but it gets shade
That's
with
That's
the tree.
the
So
problem.
that's probably what it is. Okay, I'll move it.
And you have to feed it as soon as, when it starts spring, that they start growing, as soon as the first leaf out.
Yeah.
And that I learned from one of your pond people.
Yeah.
And you have to feed it.
Yeah, that's what I've heard too, but nothing has worked, so I'm frustrated with it. But yeah, still looks good. Thank you for the.
This is a waterfall we have on the side of our barn.
So this area here is like 1.5 foot deep. It's not deep at all. And that's one of the first waterfalls that we had built. And so we just reshaped it,
I love
reformed
how
it.
it comes out like that.
It's all natural standing. It's not cemented together.
Whoa.
It's freestanding completely. Yeah, so it's all balanced. So it's working. I'll tell you about the one that is in front of the bog when we get there.
That's amazing. Did you do that?
Yeah, me and my daughter. We were like big slabs of stone. We kind of put it on there.
Do you rent her out?
Yeah, do you hire her out?
Definitely, yes.
She's in Michigan right now, a little bit older.
So I was telling you about how I protect the pond, right? How we do that. So these are all fishing lines. And so what I did here is we built this caging system. So this is like chicken wire. And so I built a wall that rises up. It's tucked in under this capstone. And so it rises up, so it's pretty steady and stable. And then these chicken wires going across, fishing lines going across. and they're tied to this weight. Okay, so fishing weights. So I can move it. So basically it's just tied to the, like it's just loop it around and it's taut. I have to get in the water. We have to all get in the water all the time, right?
Yeah.
So you have to move these things. So then I can just unwind it, move it, and move it back. So that helps. So far so good. Have been able to keep the hair down. So you can see the path down there for the stones and the flower bed.
You see some of our fish. This is a stream that goes all the way around the island, back into the main pond. Let's go over the bridge.
Okay, so this waterfall here,
Or
yeah, so this waterfall here is also freestanding. And there's a bog behind it. So the waterfall is in the water. All of these stones are in the water. And the bog is not in the water, it's on solid ground. So there's a table below it, and it's raised up. And it's basically a horse trough for water that I made the bog in. So the water is obviously falling, trickling, coming into the back into the pond. But the trick there is if you do it freestanding like that, don't attach it, don't touch it with the other structure. Because if that other structure moves, the whole thing will fall. It's never happened.
Say that again? I didn't understand.
So,
You got a horse trough you put in,
yeah, this is the horse trough.
right?
It's standing, it's on the ground, solid ground. And in front of it, in the water, is the waterfall structure with slabs and with cement blocks. So the water is coming from the horse trough, falling onto that structure and then into the pond. Don't connect the two together. Keep a gap between the two.
So how's the water flow?
The water just falls, right? So I mean, you basically what I did was I put a rubber liner
Okay.
between the two, so it'll flow, but it'll hopefully all fall.
You
onto
don't
the
have
other
to
side.
tilt it at all, it's just natural.
It's a little bit tilted. It's got about an inch angle.
Okay.
But this thing gets so heavy, the bog gets so heavy, it can naturally move. And if it moves and it touches the other surface will definitely fall.
And it's just on dirt ground.
It's on dirt ground.
And you asked me to ask, is the bog the filtration system for the pond?
It is not the only one.
Okay.
So what's happening here is I have a pump on this side and I have a pump on the other side. Both the pumps converge into one piping system and they go into a bead filter that's in the back, that's hidden by those panels. That's the main filtration system. The skimmer pump is feeding the bog. And then so the skimmer pump is feeding the bog, and the outlet from the bead filter is also coming into the bog and into the other water pump, so it splits back out. So I have multiple water sources coming into both the waterfalls. That's coming back in. But so this pond is 6,000 gallons of water. The bead filter that I have is 9,600 gallons. Bead with beads, of course. So it's overrated, and I have a 110 watt UV light on the system, which is more than what I need, but I always go more than what I need.
Any special plants or different plants that you have?
In the bog?
Yeah.
Not really. It's like the plants do really well. It's like I put a daylily in there, and it loved wet feet. It was just doing great. I also have the dwarf umbrella plant in there. put some mint, so what you're seeing here on the side is and it gives you a nice cascading effect, so it covers the sides and everything. But once it gets to the ground, it's gonna start growing there, so you have to be really careful, taking it out. I put some grasses in there as well, and then, we have that, I think it's called, I'm forgetting the name, the little, what is that called? Sedona, so the little grass that we have.
Sedum?
Sedum, thank you. The sedum grows really well too, so you can put that in the waterfall into like little pockets, and then it'll just kind of flourish really well. The parrot feather also grows really well, which is like as long as the feet are wet, it'll kind of, you don't need
It'll
to
walk
get
all over it.
Yeah, it'll fall over, it looks really nice. Yeah.
We come to our bistro set where we sometimes sit and have lunch. You can see some more beautiful fish. And of course our bog and the center waterfall.
Your placement of your rocks have things to do with it also, for the visual.
Sorry again?
Your placements of your stones on there have a symbol or is it a visual meaning?
It's just visual, yeah. Nothing specific there. I was trying to make it as natural as possible, so like, you know, like here also like you'll see the piping and everything, but we put plants around it in the back. You don't see those plants in this version. You only see the Japanese dog. But yeah, we were trying to just hide it, so like there's a, if you look closely, you can see like there's a waterfall tub there, you know, there's a small one here and there's a small one on the other side. But
Ferris feather, you can waterfall it off the back there, and it'll
yeah,
cover all that up.
yeah.
Is there a sitting area? I don't really see, is that one of the ideas, Mal?
Yeah, on
There
the,
is that one bench.
yeah, there's a benches on the outside, and on the island I have that little patio set, so we can sit there and enjoy coffee. Yeah, lunches.
See?
Yeah.
Japanese car. There you go.
So let's go. And there's our Buddha on the island. Let's go past. Back on the over the bridge. To the left. Will you see enough?
So you'll see, this is also called a Yukimi lantern. So it's the same, it's feet. This one is 4 feet. And I'll show you other designs. They have Yukimis. Yukimi means it's a lantern with feet. And so this one has 4 feet, but typically in Japanese you'll see 3 feet, you'll see 2 feet, not 1 feet. And that's a different lantern. But you'll typically see like the 2 foot ones are, the ones with 2 feet are, you know, they cross a water path. So the water goes typically through the bottom into the middle of it, but it lights that water because it's on top of water, so it looks really pretty.
Does it matter as far as the height?
The lantern?
Uh-huh.
No, this is just what you think is good works for you. I got lower ones because I was trying to highlight the path. So I got lower ones. So there's a low one here and there's a one on the other side.
Notice that you had different spots, that's just something you just put in there,
Yeah.
or is there
Yeah, I
a
just,
reason for that?
nope. I just made it up. I just, again, going back to the principle, like, you're creating asymmetry, you don't want it in a pattern. You just think of what's pleasing. So like you see these like stones here, right? So I put these white stones that are really big and they kind of break the monotony of the gray. Yeah.
King lantern. And our
That's beautiful.
Koekuru. We created a friend and I created representations of 2 torii gates. The lettering above the bonsai means Zen. Reusing red color is very traditional in Japan. Red is a sacred color. It means to ward off evil. And they use torii gates on shrines or temples and it's supposed to ward off evil for the red color. The red torii gates are called Akani. The lettering down below says Koi Kuro, which means Koi Pool.
So let me pause. So again, lanterns here on the back, same pattern. And I raised those up a little bit, so it kind of looks like more. This whole thing looks like a boat, really does. But yeah, if you look at that, we built these railings so that the herons couldn't land. So kind of breaks that landing area, if you will. And then the roof here is traditional Japanese roof, so it's curved. That was interesting to make. It's just interesting. But I have these bamboo up on top just to give it a little bit more structure. Because I thought if I didn't have it, it looks like it's not structural enough for me. Like it was looking like it was breaking my line of sight. So that gives it like it's continuing in the back, but you can't really see it. You know what I mean? So I think that's the reason why I did it was more visual for me. And then these torii gates are made to spec. So like I got the designs from online, and they're done in the same way. If you look at torii gates online, you'll see a lot of different patterns and shapes and sizes. But this one again is very traditional. It has little bows over here on the side, and then these two horizontal bars. This one is curved, and then the waterfall I put in the middle of it, which is.
Is the water falling behind that?
Yeah. There's actually a trough behind it, and then the water falls through it.
Beautiful. Oh, yeah, I can see the water.
I built these railings to stop the heron from landing and
Yeah.
enjoying my fish.
There's some big boy in there.
And how big is this
Frankenstein.
pool?
The pool is 3,000 gallons of water. 2,500 gallons of water. It's about 8 feet by 3 feet deep, end to end. But I don't fill it all the way to the top. And it's 14 feet across. Yeah, that's Frankenstein. I got it from Frank at a fish restaurant. He's the biggest fish. He's 28 years old now.
Wow.
About how big is it?
He's pretty big. He's like at least that long. He's fat. She's like probably as good as 8 inches across.
The biggest fish is probably 25 years old. There were other fish here.
Is the cable just to keep the sides together?
Great question. I was wondering if someone was going to ask me that.
I built all my ponds above ground and they're not the same size. That's why I was asking.
So we built this. This thing has so much structure, right? Every, I think 16 inches we have 2x8s, straight up. And it's still bowing. Within a year it started bowing. So I was like, oh, this thing's gonna fall over. So I reinforced it with the wire.
So it's all wood structure, 2x8s all the way.
Yeah, every 16 inches is 2x8s, straight up like this. And of course, there's boards on both sides, but boy, it's just so much weight on the water. It started going. And this is the first time we've done it, so which is cool. I mean, it's learning, right? So I was like, put the reinforcement on it. Thank you for asking.
Well, that's what, like all my ponds are, have a little bit of a buggy to them.
Waterfall.
Okay, so that's pretty much the end of this one. And then, so I'm just going to go and show you some night pictures in the back. So this transitioning to a photo gallery of sorts, but this is the
Jasper, smart for show.
That's a star of our show. So this is a nighttime view.
Nice. love the strings.
Maybe they just have like lights behind them?
Yep. And so what I did was I put paper, and then the paper basically distributes the light better.
Is it like LEDs on them? Or?
No, it's just a LED spotlight.
Okay, so it's spotting on the paper.
Okay, yeah. And it's of course everything is on timer, and then the light you can change colors and stuff.
Yeah.
It gets a little too much. But what's interesting about the colors, as I mentioned, the colors of the light, I try to be consistent with it. So it's the same yellowish hue as all the other lights around the pond, because I don't want one area to be like bright white, whereas the other areas to be a yellowish color. Because then again, it breaks your pattern, right? You only see that first. And so just to be consistent, we kind of went with more of that. And then with this one, interesting learning there. So this blade waterfall came with the strip of light. And what they typically do is they want you to put the light on the waterfall right there. It does not look good to me. You see the light and it's right shining in your eyes, and it doesn't light up the water, because it lights up the area of the water where the light is, but everything else is dark.
Yeah.
So I took it out, and what I did was I put a light in front of the waterfall, down in the water, which is shining up into the waterfall. The other thing that I was thinking of doing was putting the light under the waterfall, like the water is literally dropping on the light.
Stabilizing
Yeah. So then, I wanted the light to travel in the water. I haven't got it perfect yet, but. And the other thing that I was worried about is that because the waterfall also has a lot of weight, and these lights aren't necessarily underwater lights for the waterfall like that, I was worried about like what's going to happen to the light. So and the water would go into the light and all these things, so which always happens, but still. So the light is in front of the waterfall for now. But it illuminates, and then again, over here, I have two lights in front, which are lighting up the front of it, and you can see the lettering and things like this.
Is that scanned with plywood?
Yeah. And then that's the overall view. So,
It's beautiful.
Are all the lights on timers?
yes,
They're automatic.
everything is on timers.
Cool.
Okay, so that was that. So sorry, I hope I'm not going too long. Tell me, but let's design a garden. What do you think? So I put some pictures together, and I wanted to show you how you can do your design garden. So this is on the side of our pond, right? We did the little walkthrough, and that area looks pretty barren.
Yeah.
So I thought I'd use that and you guys can help me tell me what you like and don't like. And we can start the
Winter
little-
storms, not so great anymore.
Yeah. Yeah, so this is the other Yukimi lantern on this side. We like feeding birds, and so Lisa has these bird feeders here. Okay, so we added gravel. Sorry for the pictures. I was trying to do this in graphics and just kind of came out weird, but generally you get the idea. It's like you would add some sort of gravel, same color gravel. Now there's a natural break here, right? Because this is the break. So I can change the color if I wanted to. So what I might do in actuality is I might just leave that mulch. Because for me to add that much gravel, that's like 4 tons of gravel. That's a lot of gravel. So I might not do that, I'm not sure. But maybe I will. It has to get approved by our housing director. Yeah, the garden designer. Okay, so choose a gravel. It can be sand, a different color sand, but neutral, right? So don't use the pea gravel, because pea gravel has too much color. And if your intention is to use the gravel that you can actually shape, so you want to actually make patterns in the gravel and things like this, you get the smaller stone, but get it of the same color, some neutral color. Okay, so then concept of threes. So the next just certainly starts looking good, much better, right? And these are abelias, and that probably would be boxes. We haven't decided what we're going to do there. But we're going to get like different shapes, the bushes, and just put them in, so it'll automatically just be magically bigger. So same pattern style, use 537. So then some excellent point of interest. So the reason I put it on white is because it looks, for one, it looks aesthetically good, kind of breaks the pattern, it gives more focus to the deity, to the Buddha right there. And I was trying to put it to scale, so like the fence, you can imagine this is a 6-foot fence, so maybe 3-foot size, 3-4 foot tall. Okay, so that's your main focal point. So now when you look at it, you kind of start hopefully, seeing a little bit more pleasing effect. And then add some lanterns. So a friend of mine, again, the same friend, Ernest, he makes these lanterns. He makes different kinds of lanterns. It's really interesting. So he made these for his house. So I'm gonna have him make these somewhere. He made the Shinto lantern too. Of course I can use the same pattern that I did for the other ones, but I might change it up a little bit and put some different lanterns. But what I'm showing you here is a lantern next to the Buddha. So you light up the deity in the night. And then it also looks good a little bit, it kind of is part of that feature. And I put these lanterns here so that you have more spread light across the garden. And then so let's talk about lanterns a little bit, right? So these are the different types of lanterns that I just collected this material from the web. You can just search types of Japanese lanterns. So here's the anatomy of a lantern. So there are different, traditional lantern, there are different parts of the lantern that are prescribed, so to speak, for the lantern, right? So you have like the jewel on top, then you have the roof, you have a light chamber, you have a platform here, you have a shaft, and then you have the base. And you'll see this pattern pretty much in every lantern, at least this one, right? So this is the leg, so to speak. Then there are variations of this. So there are stone lanterns, metal lanterns, wooden lanterns, paper lanterns, for different purposes. So the paper lanterns, you typically see them hanging. And you go to market, you go to Target, you see these paper lanterns that you can hang in the rooms. Very similar, it's the same kind of concept. It's like that's where it's borrowed from. But these are, came from the Chinese culture actually. A lot of Japanese gardening is from the Chinese culture. And this is so far back that it's been influenced by the Japanese themselves over time. So it's changed a lot. So they look different, the architecture is a little different, but you'll see similarities. Questions? Yep? No? Okay. So this is the wooden lantern. So these are the classic Shinto lanterns that you see there. Very heavy arcs on the roof. Again, they light up. It has a pedestal. And the pathways. This is on the pathways to the Shinto shrine. And then the stone metal lanterns. You see these are different types. So this is called the Tachigata. I'm pronouncing it in English, not Japanese way. It's like difficult. This is Ikekomi, and this is a Okigata. So these are lower. But this is not a yukimi because this is actually much lower to the ground. It doesn't have any feet. So this one is a yukimi because it has feet. And so you saw the styles that I had, they're more like this pattern. And then this is the Shigata, which is, it's balanced like it's the surrounding that makes it that, which is just balance of the rock and a tree. And it's more of a pedestal lantern. So more of this style, but it's this structure, I guess that's what's making it, giving it a different name. So there are different ways of naming the questions. So some of these, when you're going to buy a lantern, most of the time they won't have a hole in the structure for the wire. So take a look if they have it or not. The one that I had in my Zen garden didn't. So I attached a wire on the backside so you can't really see it. So you use like a neutral color, the same color if you can, you know, of the wire. And what really works is the flame LED bulb.
Oh, wow.
So go to Amazon, it costs $3-4 for a bulb, and it lights up like a flame. It's great. It's like all my lanterns have flame LED bulbs, and you light it up at night. It looks like fire is in the lantern. So it looks super natural, and then of course it's LED, so it's not using any power. It's wonderful. Love it. Okay. So then add a path. So you want to go to your garden, you don't want to be walking on the gravel, right? So now suddenly, because I was being consistent with my color palette, I made the same stone and I took it forward and made a path into the garden so I can walk around wherever I want. So then, let's talk about paths. Bazillion shapes and forms, right? But if you are being true to the Japanese patterns and you want to actually do a much better job than I did, you will follow one of these patterns. This one is very classic, and you'll see this in as bridges on water bodies. So they take almost like a, I don't know, like an 8x10 piece of wood, like a massive block, and they'll attach that piece of wood to another piece of wood, but then it'll be like this. And then, you know, they'll have another one going from here to the other section, and then they'll put another one there. So it's like, it becomes a walking path, but it's connected in this way. So that's one style, this is another style. There are other patterns over here where, you know, you have 2 stone combinations, 3 stone combinations, just depends on how you want to structure it. So take a look and see what looks good in your garden, what you want to do. Because these kind of patterns have more stone in them, right? So they're more fixed. But these are more set, like the paths that we have. It's like you can take a paver and put it in there. The interesting thing about these is to be consistent in the distance between the stones. So try to see if your stone has a flat surface and the other stone has a flat surface. Try to put them together and try to control the distance. And that way it'll look much better. So what I call, we have what is called an informal path. Like it doesn't have a shape or a structure, we just made it. But we could have gone to any one of these, you know, it's more or less a straight line. The other thing is that don't make it so that your stone is like that far. So it's very common to do that, right? You would think that the stone is too close, but then it's very difficult to walk on. So you typically need only like 6 inches between 2 stones. Then you can step on it, you know. And literally, I'm telling you, our dog, our Japanese friend, he loves to walk on those pavers. He won't go on the grass or on the gravel, he'll walk on the pavers. And it's very convenient for him, he likes it. It's like, okay, if you like it, then I have mission accomplished.
Well, he is the super rider.
Yes.
You were building that for your dog.
He's an air chaser.
Definitely not. He does a good job.
All right, so a lot of reading that you can, I have some sources here. I love these books. It's called Authentic Japanese Gardens. This one is Illustrated Encyclopedia. Great books. If you want to pick them up. But there are so many sources out there on the internet and everything. So. Okay, so the other thing that you can do, very typical of Zen gardens, is having borders. Have you seen these Zen gardens where you have these big borders? Mm-hmm. There's a reason for those borders. Those borders are actually representative of mountains or deities. So the biggest one is typically Buddha, the biggest one. And there are 2 stones next to it. Again, pattern of 3. There are 2 stones next to it, which are the followers or the disciples of the Buddha. So that's the representation. So you'll always do these in 3. So over here I have 3. Natural color, you could pick slate. If it's mountainous, if you want it like a mountain shape, they're kind of pointed. You'll see that. And the reason for that is that if you look at the mountains in Japan, they actually look like that. They're very, very sharp, edges, pointy. And it's just because a lot of the territory, it's an island, right? I mean, a lot of the territory is volcanic, or that is how the earth moved, soil moved, and then the mountains were created, right? So it's representative of that. So that is one way you could do it. It's like instead of like you could have the focal point here, the other way to do it, like so for us it would be like behind the pond. Right? So it will like you won't see it. So I could put it like here maybe, or we could not use the Buddha, and we could have those stones. So you just have to play around with it. You just have to see what looks good. And
So how often do you move things around?
I don't move things around at all. We'll set it in a place and that's it, you know. But honestly, like people who are serious gardeners who are really into Japanese gardens and everything, they move these stones around a lot before they get the right shape and the value.
Kind of like the bonsai
balance.
people with their trees.
Yeah, they move these around a lot, and it's very difficult because they're very heavy, of course.
Yes.
And then the way you set them, there's actually a science to setting these. You just don't put them on the surface because you're always worried about them falling over. So you actually set them in the ground. You actually create a hole is good, and you put cement around it. You know, set them in the ground so they don't actually move, and then you put all the other things around it. So that was the first thing you do. There's a lot of movies about this concept as well. It's like you've seen some of these Japanese movies where they're building these Japanese gardens. It's really beautiful. The other thing we could do is we can add these panels and stuff to the back. You can see that I just borrowed it from the other garden, kind of brought it here just to show you. So what happens with this is that it is forcing me to look at this. I am not looking at the back. Because we're living in an urban community, there are houses all around us, our eye naturally goes to those things. But I'm training my eye to go to a separate focal point, which is being captured there. So that's the idea. I am not looking at anything else, that's why it's pleasing and, yes sir.
So have you thought about putting a vine up the fence to kind of obscure the fence?
Yeah, I actually do. You don't see it here, but there's a wisteria in the back that's climbing down, having that effect. But it doesn't stay green for a very long period of time, which is kind of interesting about the wisteria. It does have flowers and they're very pretty, but after a week they're gone, and the wine kind of. So I probably need a better choice.
Have you considered painting the fence red?
I
Make it look like your pond?
We have talked about it. Probably not red. I would probably go for a more natural color, like a brown. But yeah, we have talked about it, like painting the fence. The other thing we could do is like we could make some like artificial, like a roof that I had as a kid. Those things are also easy to make. It's just pieces of wood, you kind of put them together, and then you could give it some sort of structure. We don't have a whiteboard here, but a friend of mine, I'll friend, a person I've been following for a long time in England. His garden has gone insanely beautiful. Like it's great. And so he built this little structure where he put. So imagine, if you will, he put wood like this on the sides, and then on the bottom he made a bowing curved piece of wood, and it's like a roof cover. It's not very long. It's just maybe a foot or a foot and a half in width, but it shades his bonsai trees, and so it looks really pretty. It's like it gives a little curve in the middle, and it's got his flaps on the side. So you can just look for patterns and designs, and just. So again, be unconventional in the sense that if you like something from a book, doesn't mean that it's going to be good in your garden. So you've got to decide for yourself, like, what do you like? And a lot of the times when I'm looking at pictures, at least I've done this a lot, is like we would take a picture and we say, okay, what do we like about this? So we would hide the portions of the picture with our hand or something. To say, why do I like this? You know? So kind of do that kind of trick and see what's so pleasing about it. That's it, folks. And
Where did you get the signs?
they were actually made in England. So I had them shipped here. I can give you the guy's address or name if you want, but I was gonna get a couple more for the back. But there's this guy who makes these. So another interesting fact is,
So like those you just put there like
Yeah.
like digitally, right?
yeah,
So,
yeah. So this one actually says True Beauty, and is a koi. So we told him what koi we wanted. So he made the koi for us, and he made the sign for us. So we can do it. And so we call our gardens True Beauty Japanese gardens. That's
and those are like the fish, are those just like cut wood?
yeah.
Laser cut?
He does a great job. It's like they look 3D. It's beautiful. And he has smaller hexagonal signs, like that actually hexagon shape, and then these are more square rectangular-ish. These are
How large is your backyard? It's kind of hard to tell. I mean, is it a normal standard? I don't know how to define that.
my lot.
It looks bigger by your.
It's a pretty big bag.
It's big. Yeah, it's
Quarter lot or something, or?
It's probably 100 feet across by 40, 50 feet from the house to the back fence.
Wow, you've done a lot with it then.
It's like a third acre total lot. It's like a third acre.
Okay, so it's bigger than your average.
It probably is. Yeah, these are one of the bigger lots that are in our neighborhood as well. It's a much older lot.
Because when you put all this in, it looks huge.
Yeah.
And this, you know.
No, this area is
Yeah,
very big.
it is.
It's this area that I'm showing you that we just designed is probably from the side of from this side of the pond to that fence is probably easily 40 feet, 30, 40 feet. And yeah, it doesn't look like that here because it's flattened, right? You don't really see it.
Right.
But this distance from this fence up to this edging that I have here, I want to say, is-
Compared to the length of this wall.
yeah. And it's probably easily about 10, 15 feet, like right there. So it's a decent size.
On the fence which you have here, just to tell you that our daughter about 20 years ago, and the mirror's still there, she did a background of each, she painted the whole thing. And on the right side, there's a light there, and she painted a lighthouse, making the light.
Wow.
Wow.
So just to let you know.
Beautiful.
That sounds lovely.
Wow. Yeah. I've seen, that's a great idea. I mean, if you want to do that, use that concept. But I wouldn't do, okay, I'm just saying, Japanese theme wise, right? So
Because that's a
where,
social fence.
where my mind is going is that you can use, definitely ask her to do it, but build like a serene background that blends into the front. So you could do like a mountain scene in the back.
Or cherry blossoms.
Cherry blossoms would be great, something like that. So it'll completely blend into the front of the garden. That would be beautiful, yeah.
The advantage that have is where the wall is at on the back porch.
Yeah.
The roof goes over it, so it's weather protected.
Yeah.
So that's what makes it nice.
Yeah.
Basically. But on this, you have weather,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
you
right.
have to deal with repainting it or what have you.
Absolutely.
I see it now, Mount Fuji and cherry blossom.
And instead of the lighthouse, you could maybe do like the Shinto lantern representations, like how 2 Shinto lanterns painted or how many ever. That would look good.
I mean, kids holding Japanese kite.
Yeah, why
Oh,
not?
how cute is that?
Absolutely.
That would be adorable.
Yeah,
Oh my gosh.
absolutely, yeah. So I've seen like in Portland, I went to the Seattle Japanese garden, so what they've done in the fence is they raised it, and then they put a lattice structure on top of the fence, and a little bit of a roof, like a half, like I would say, like a foot and a half. So that gives it a little bit of a shade, it kind of blocks everything else behind it. Looks interesting. I mean, it's just different patterns and everything.
Very cool.
I really like the signs, it's cool. Yeah, I was scrolling through Etsy as you were showing me. Yeah.
Rashad, I know you were on the tour last year. Are you gonna be on the tour this year?
I am not on the tour, I'm just directing.
Okay.
Well, thank you very, very much.
Yeah, thank you guys.
Everyone remember, our next meeting will be our fish and plant swap at Bruce's.
All
So
right.
start transplanting, picking out which fish you're gonna trade, and we're gonna have a barbecue at the end of that.
Sure, no, we'll start with barbecue actually. It'll be
I
noon.
think Keith is one of
You mean
the
grilling?
special events, so. And it'll be at 12
Yeah, we'll
o'clock.
start at 12, and we'll have lunch, and then we'll have some kind of barbecue lunch, and then we'll go into the fish and plant swap.
But please label your plants.
Is it next weekend?
No, it's a month away.
Okay.